Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Pinal County Community College District Governing Board meeting of April 16th, 2024. We'll note that we have a quorum this meeting, and please, if you'll stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll now move to the adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So made. Second.
Okay. Thank you. I have a motion and a second to adopt. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. And nays? Motion carries. Okay, the agenda is adopted. Okay, now we'll have call to the public. The board is prohibited by area statute from discussing, considering, or actions or items raised during call to the public. Individuals are limited to a 3-minute presentation. Is there anybody that would like to speak? We have no one? Okay. No one? Okay. Thank you. We'll move on from call to the public. All right. Action items. Consideration of the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move.
I'll second.
And motion second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. And then, let's see, let's go to number 6. So the next item we have on the agenda is we are going to go into executive session. Okay, so we're going to go in another room, and then we'll be back, get legal counsel. And so I need a motion to go into executive session, please.
So made.
I'll second.
I have motion second to go into executive session. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. So we are in executive session, and we'll be back as soon as we are done, and then restart the meeting. Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. I'll gavel us back into session. We're back in session on item number 7, discussion, consideration, and possible approval of a settlement agreement regarding the claim of Lisa Hahn and Arizona Attorney General case CRD-2023-1221. Any discussion?
Mr. President,
Yes.
I move to approve the settlement agreement and release of claims as made in the state of Arizona by and between Lisa Hahn and Central Arizona College.
Do I have a second? You have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. On to number 8. Emeritus status faculty by Dr. Mary Kay Gillian is going to talk about this item. Sounds great.
Good afternoon.
Welcome.
Board Chairman Lopez, members of the board, Dr. Elliott, Mary Lou, colleagues, students, and guests. I'm here to propose that the board consider voting to approve that retired Professor Victoria Young-Shiverton be awarded faculty emeritus status. You have a very complete description of the proposal in your packet. I just want to highlight just a couple of things for you without going through and being too redundant, but I just want to say that Professor Victoria Young-Shiverton was incredibly devoted to Central Arizona College. She was a wonderful representative of the field of education of young children, early childhood education. She was responsible here at CAC for pursuing and helping us become accredited by the National Association for the Education of Young Children, which was really quite an honor to be a part of that. It's not required, but it is a prestigious association, and it helps us stay on the right track in our profession or in our training. She was responsible, a couple things that didn't get into the package. She was responsible for really pushing dual enrollment for the ECE program and personally taught out at San Manuel High School for a number of years. So she served as faculty senate president. She was instrumental in having a bilingual group teaching, training in the program. So she did a wide range of things, and she's still involved in the profession as a peer reviewer. I hope that's not something of mine ringing. Anyway, I will leave it at that, and thank you for your consideration of Professor Victoria Young-Shiverton as Professor Emeritus.
Thank you. It was a lot of good background information you provided for us to look at. It was very, very impressive, and I think all staff at CAC works that hard, I believe. And so thank you for the recognition. And any questions from anybody on the board? comments? Okay. So the proposal is to make the recommendation to us to grant the status to Victoria Young Shiverton, if I pronounce that right.
Perfect.
Do I have a motion?
So move.
I'll second.
I have a motion second to grant the status. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Opposed? Motion carries. You have it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, let's see. Next is designation reserved for future facilities by our Louis Sott.
Good afternoon, President Gabriel, other governing board members, Dr. Elliott, Mary Lou, staff and guests. We request that the governing board designate $10 million of restricted net assets from our cash reserve as a restricted reserve for future facilities.
Any questions? I guess a little bit of information. How does that help us by having the reserve, or?
So it's setting aside some of our cash reserve into designated by the governing board so that in future years we can spend that money on construction or purchases of land renovations. And then it is, when it's designated this way, it is, you can exclude it from the expenditure limitation. So it
Okay.
allows us to
That's
not have to
important.
borrow funds,
Okay.
use our own money, and not have to have it subject to the expenditure limitation.
Can we build it up over the years, or?
That's the plan.
Okay, that's
yes.
what we're
So
doing. Okay,
we
good.
have built it up over the years, but we've been spending some of it on the Superstition Mountain construction.
It's a great
And
facility.
because it's getting lower, we want to start setting more aside.
Okay, great. Thank you for the explanation for the newer ones like myself that aren't sure. So any questions? Yes, Dr.
Yeah. How did we arrive at that number? Why not more or less?
Well, right now, we wanted to just put 10 million aside. We're looking at maybe doing another 15 by the end of June, but it's just kind of watching how it goes down and what we want to bring it back up to. And not do too much all at once, but just to be sure that we have enough cash for everything else as well.
Okay, great. Any other questions from the board? Okay, so, is there a motion, please, to
Move to approve.
approve? Second?
Second.
We have motion second to designate that $10 million to future projects. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Against? Nope. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, reports. We have 10 reports from the college president. Can you do this, Dr. Lee? You all
I
right?
can do it. Hopefully everyone can hear me.
Do a summary.
I don't have a lot today, thank goodness. Good afternoon, President Lopez, governing board members, Mary Lou, faculty, staff, and guests. I have a couple updates. The first, we want to recognize one of our own faculty member, Armine Norvan, was awarded the League of Innovation Faculty of the Year Outstanding Faculty Award. She was also selected for our George Friedel Faculty Award. So we're really proud of her. The second is the Pent Center update. Crews have finally determined a way to safely enter the auditorium and have started the process of removing the debris. However, I think it's important to note, until they have it all removed, we will not probably know the full extent of the damage to other parts of our infrastructure, like electrical and those other things. As you can recall, it was exposed to the elements for a really long time. And then the last thing I want to share with you before I get into the legislative updates, we are extremely excited that we received some congressional direct spending this year in the amount of a little over $1 million. And this grant is to help us fund a fiber optic training program to meet the needs of telecom companies to deploy fiber in Pinal County. And we're also going to do a program to do tower training and to support our drone program. So, I mean, this is really kind of a big deal because it's very rare that you get congressional direct spending anymore in this day and age. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Board have any questions? I think it's a great, that is very exciting, especially in those areas because they're so important. Any
So-
comments, questions? Right.
So on to my legislative update, I'm going to share with you the two bills that have moved, because all the other ones I have been sharing with you all along have just stalled and have stopped moving. So Senate Bill 1189, political subdivisions are prohibited from enacting ordinances, rules, or policies that prohibit gun shows from occurring or that primarily affect gun shows. And this has actually been transmitted to the governor for signature on April 9th. And then an update on Senate Bill 1190, the collegiate special license plate, that the law changed it from 50,000 students to 9,000 students to be able to get a personalized license plate for your institution. This bill has actually been signed by the governor. But it's important to know this was really driven by Pima Community College's foundation as a way that they thought, or they believe that they can raise money. But it will also, if we decide to do this, it would cost us $32,000 to participate in that program. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from the board? It's a very good update. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, moving on. Next to Business Affairs Report. Louise Ott. Got water? Okay.
Good afternoon again. So we have our auditors from the Arizona Auditor General's office here. They're going to do a presentation to the board on our audit that was just issued.
Okay, great.
Good afternoon, President Lopez, members of the board, District President Dr. Elliott. I am Vicki Fisher. I'm the Financial Audit Manager on your district's audits, and joining me today is Jacob Votrebeck, which is the lead senior for the 23 audits. Thank you for inviting our office to join your regular meeting today to present our audit results and findings of the Pinal County Community College District. Before we discuss the district's audits, I wanted to refresh your memory on the Auditor General's background. The office is a legislative agency made up of nonpartisan staff. We provide impartial information, specific recommendations to improve operations and programs of state and local governments, which includes Pinal County Community College District. We are well-versed in and follow several standards, including governmental auditing standards. Like our previous presentation with the board, we are here today in accordance with Arizona Revised Statutes, Section 11-661D, which directs the district governing board to require its auditors, the office, to present its results and any findings to the board in a regular meeting without the use of a consent agenda and within 90 days of the audit's completion. This is a great opportunity for us, your auditors, to be in front of you and to provide information regarding our work and answer any questions you may have. Before I begin, I'd like to thank all of the district staff for their prompt attention to our request. Together with the district, we initially had established an annual financial report issuance deadline of December 31st. Of 23, but due to some delays in receiving some information and delays caused by implementation of new accounting standards, we were not able to meet that date and instead issued the report on March 19th, 2024. And I wanted to thank everyone's efforts for providing us with the information we requested. And today we'll be discussing our work on 3 required annual reports: the district's annual financial report, the report on internal control and compliance, and the federal single audit report. As we've done in the past, when your annual reports are completed, we email each of you a link to these reports. And on March 20th, 2024, we emailed a link for the annual comprehensive financial report. and March 26, 2024 for the report on internal control and compliance and for the single audit report. The first report, the district's annual financial report, presents the district's annual financial statements and our opinion on them. The objective of the audit is to obtain a reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error, and to issue a report that includes our opinions. It's wonderful to report once again for fiscal 23, we reported an unmodified or clean opinion, which means the district's financial statements are reliable. The second report, the report on internal control and compliance, is where we report any findings and recommendations resulting from the audit of the financial statements. We're happy to report that for fiscal year 23, we reported no financial statement findings. Finally, the third and final report, the federal single audit report, includes our assessment of the district's compliance with federal program requirements over each federal program we're required to audit. Our report on internal control over compliance with federal programs, and the district's schedule of federal expenditures and our opinion on it. The objective of these audits is to obtain reasonable assurance about whether material noncompliance with the compliance requirements occurred, whether due to fraud or to error, and express an opinion on the district's compliance based on the audit. We reported one single audit finding, and Jacob will go over that finding with you shortly. Reasonable assurance is high, but not absolute level of assurance. Our audits are performed following governmental standards and uniform guidance, but there's no guarantee that those audits will always detect material misstatements or noncompliance. And material means the considerable likelihood that individually or in total, the misstatements or noncompliance would influence a reasonable person's judgment. Further, the risk of not identifying material misstatements and noncompliance is higher due to fraud than it is due to error, because fraud may involve a collaborative effort to commit fraud, management's not using internal controls, and then other factors. We did not identify any fraud in our fiscal year 23 audits of the district. And because we know that reports can be detailed and complex, we also prepare audit report highlights, which is a 2-page summary that you receive with reports. The highlights include the district's largest primary revenue sources and how the district used those monies over the past 10 years, as well as our key findings and recommendations. And I'd like to take the opportunity to present some key financial information for the district over the last 5 years included in those highlights. The graph, the district's main sources of revenue continue to be property taxes, governmental grants and contracts, state assistance, and tuition and fees. And as you can see from the graph, the district's revenues from property taxes have steadily increased over the past 5 years, while governmental grants and contracts decreased nearly $8.4 million during fiscal year 23 due to the decrease in the federal grant revenue related to COVID-19. This contributed to total revenues received by the district decreasing by over $3.1 million. Further, while state assistance dipped slightly in fiscal year 23, it overall increased by $4.5 million during fiscal year 22, and the revenues from Smart and Safe Arizona Fund continued to grow each year, increasing to nearly $2.5 million in fiscal year 23. And as you can see from this graph, the district's 4 primary expense purposes continue to consist of institutional support, instruction, scholarships, and student services. The district's instructional expenses have increased $1.4 million in fiscal year 23, which the district reported is due to increased enrollment. Institutional support expenses fluctuated significantly between 2019 and 23, with a large decrease of nearly $2.5 million during fiscal 23, and student service expenses have fluctuated little since 2021. Finally, scholarship expenses dropped nearly $2.2 million during fiscal 23. And the district reported that the decrease is in institutional support and scholarship expenses were due to the associated decrease in federal grant monies available with the decreased funding related to the COVID-19 programs as previously discussed. And then overall, the district's expenses decreased by slightly over $351,000 during the fiscal year. This graph highlights the 5-year trend of the district's revenue and expenses. And as you can see, the district's revenues, shown in light blue, have exceeded its expenses, shown in dark blue, since the year fiscal year 2019. Also, you can see that the black line, the district's net position, has increased every year since 2019. Most importantly, the district's overall net position increased by $27.1 million in fiscal 23. Total net position for the district was $229.4 million, and that's as of June 30th, 2023, an increase of nearly $92.4 million, or 46% since fiscal year 2019. It's important to note that not all of the net position balance is spendable at the end of fiscal year 23, because $79.8 million of this balance was invested in capital assets and $9.4 million is restricted. That leaves an unrestricted balance of $140.2 million. And then finally, I'd like to highlight the district's federal expenditures that are presented each year in the single audit report. Although the district received grants from 4 federal agencies during fiscal 23, you can see from the table that most of its expenditures were from the U.S. Department of Education, like in the past 5 years. And you can also see a substantial decrease in federal expenditures in fiscal year 23, and that's due to COVID-19 and emergency relief monies that the district received. Specifically, the Higher Education Emergency Relief Fund grant expenditures were $2.2 million in fiscal year 23, which is a decrease of $10.5 million from the previous year. And then now, I think I'd like to turn it over to Jacob to discuss the audit findings and recommendations that we reported.
Thank you, Vicki. Alrighty. So, as previously noted, the single audit report is where you will find our federal compliance audit finding along with the district's response to it. For the district, we reported 1 federal compliance finding related to the student financial, or SFA, cluster. The district corrected a previously reported finding over the SFA cluster and a finding over the Education Stabilization Fund, Higher Education Emergency Relief Fund student portion. The federal compliance finding for the Student Financial Assistance Program found that for 1 of 40 students tested, the district did not correctly calculate returns of student financial assistance monies it reported to the federal agency's Common Origination and Disbursement System. In addition, for 2 of the 40 students tested, the district did not timely calculate, report, and return student financial assistance monies owed to the student or the federal government within the required 45 days after the student's withdrawal from classes. As the district returned these students' monies 4 days late and 17 days late, respectively, our report identifies recommendations to accurately calculate, report, and return student financial assistance monies to the federal government or the student within the required 45 days. Additionally, the district should require an independent review of the return of student financial assistance money calculations prior to their submission to the federal agency. This finding was initially reported in fiscal year 21. The district reported that it anticipates fully correcting the deficiencies by June 30th, 2024. So this completes our presentation of the district's fiscal year 2023 audit reports, including the federal compliance finding. Are there any questions that we can answer for you concerning the district's audits?
I just have one real quick. The limit on the single audit, is it 800,000 now? Or did it go up? It used to, because I know we have 14 more million federal dollars. I was just curious because we used to do audits and it changes.
I'll turn that question over to Vicki. I think she
Yeah.
might be able to help you out a little bit.
No, are you talking about the threshold for
Yeah,
single
right.
audits? No, that has not changed.
It hadn't changed at all?
no.
Okay. Is it 800,000 still, or is it used to be 500,000? I don't know if it's changed. Anyway, I was curious. No, thank you for, any questions from the board? So so I think it shows that we're fiscally responsible and healthy as far as financials. You know, the college is definitely in the black and has enough revenue to continue on. Its primary objective of education and workforce development and all those things. And I saw our finance director's response to your audit. I read through it pretty carefully, and we're taking steps. The college is taking steps to make sure those lapses don't happen. The 8 and 14 was 4 days and 17 days were the difference in reporting. So, yeah, overall, I think our finance department's doing a great job. So, but thank you for pointing those things out to us. It's important. Absolutely.
Well, thank you for allowing us to present today. President Lopez and President Dr. Elliott, and we really enjoyed working with Louisa and her staff.
Good.
They were very helpful. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
All right. So we just did some of them, yeah. And we'll do the monthly budget report next, please. I wasn't sure if it was all part of the same. Thank you.
All right, President Lopez, fellow governing board members, Dr. Elliott, Mary Lou, staff and guests, we now have the monthly budget report. The monthly budget report is in your packets, and it reflects year-to-date through February 2024. So February of 2024 shows the district's operating fund expenditures are at 59.57% of total budget. This is an increase of 16.39% from February 2023, which was at 43.18%. Are there any questions on the monthly budget report?
Any questions, board members? No. Thank you.
Okay, you also have in your packets the awarded bids over $20,000. Were there any questions on those?
It's a pretty thorough list. So any questions on the bids? No questions.
All right, thank you.
All right, next, I think we have awarded bids, or is it covered under the same? It's covered the same. Okay, good. All right. It just had another item. So the awarded bids are already covered. She
Yes.
covered that, yeah. Okay. All right. Next, we have board outcome, number 1, Dr. Jeannie Cardenas and Dr. Mary Kay Julian.
Good afternoon again, Board Chair Lopez, members of the board, Dr. Elliott, Mary Lou, colleagues, students, and guests. We are here with the board outcome, number 1, Dr. Cardenas and I, and we've divided it up. I'm going to go through the first 3 slides, or just the first 3 outcome measures, and then Dr. Cardenas will step in, and then we'll both kind of talk just briefly about the summaries at the end. So, board outcome 1 is looking at student success from a variety of measures, but particularly retention, persistence, and completion of students. And in this first graph, we're looking at the retention, but I want to specify that this is the retention of first-time, full-time students. So it's not a comprehensive look at our students. It is a slice of the students, and this is a typical measure for some of the compliance reports that we have to do. This is actually based on the EZ Vision report, but that is also a typical reporting measure for iPads and for some other things. So In general, we're doing a pretty good job. We are not at our 75%, which is what the board outcome would like, but we got up to 73% for that retention number this time around. We've held pretty steady. We were at 73% back in 2019 to 2020. We dipped a little bit, and then we're coming back up in 21, 22. But we are actually above the national average, but we are just a tad below the Arizona average. So working hard to get above that. The second measure is our graduation measure. And so we're looking at the graduation rates, and we have increased from 24% to 28%. The board outcome is at 48%. We would very much like to be there. And again, we are working very hard to try a lot of different strategies to improve that graduation rate. Interesting that it really popped up during the pandemic, and I think that's partly because we missed our spring graduation, and then we had a sort of combined graduation in December, so it was kind of interesting. But I'm also wondering if because people weren't doing other things, they were focusing more on their studies and maybe able to participate more in graduation. But that's just my personal speculation. I don't really have, that's anecdotal. Anyway, again, we are just below the Arizona averages, and we are kind of even with, it kind of varies a little bit with the national average. This last measure, we are below that as well, but we were ahead of it in a couple of the others. And then finally, looking at credentials awarded for, per full-time student equivalent, the board outcome, or the board expectation is 52%. We're at 41% in our most recent measure, up from 39%. Again, a little varying around, but we are hoping to continue that upward trend. And so I'm going to step back and turn it over to Dr. Cardenas.
All right, so the next three charts that we're going to look at and the measures that we're looking at have to do with what the Aspen metrics call our minority metrics. So it's primarily looking at students that have been identified as Black or African American, Indigenous or Native American, and Latinx or Hispanic. So it is even a smaller percentage of what Mary Kay had alluded to. So measure 1.4 is minority graduation rate, and we've actually seen a significant increase in that from 15% in the previous year up to 23%. So looking at that number as a whole, we still certainly, even though we have surpassed the board goal that was set, we still have a tremendous amount of work to do in helping our students to reach their graduation goals. If we could go to the next one. Or I guess okay. Sorry, that was my fault. You were doing it, I think. I apologize. So we are up 23%, which again is above the governing board goal. The next is looking at our minority credentials awarded per FTSE. This one we've seen a more of a significant decline, and this is one I've recently reached out to Dustin, and we're going to dive more into to see what possibly has led to this, whether it's certain parts of the demographic that are struggling more than others, or in different areas and different degrees or certificates, and trying to determine how we can have a more targeted impact on helping to increase this number. And then the last are our Pell recipients' graduation rate. So these are looking at our population of students who are receiving Pell awards and the rate in which they're graduating, which again, you'll see that we've seen a fairly significant increase from what we've seen in the past. We again have passed the goal that the governing board has set in place, and there's been a lot of work that's been done around FAFSA completion as a whole. We also know that many of our students that are coming from the different communities within Pinal County are eligible as Pell recipients. So the more that we are able to increase the FAFSA completion, we know that we will have likely additional students who are receiving Pell, and we've started to really work on assisting more with our students who are Pell recipients. So I think a lot of the planned and recent improvements that you'll see that Mary Kay and I will go over now are really, rather than looking at our whole student population and providing services to all students and hoping that it helps. We're looking more at targeted populations of students who we see are the most underrepresented and also who have the biggest challenges or barriers that have been placed in front of them. So part of what we've done recently is, if you'll recall in a previous presentation, the implementation of the CARE team, which was developed to provide services as a whole for our students, focusing on mental health and basic needs that students might have. Our registration, advising, and central help desk created a student portal one-on-one session. So we've had many of our students who have participated in those, which help in navigating our student portal. So we have seen a jump from 21% portal use, and that's where the students would go into their student portal and actually do registration on their own. It's jumped from 21% in the fall of 2021 to 58% most recently. So the spring of 24, we had a 58% of our students used the student portal, which is a huge increase. Part of that is due to the fact that our degree progress audit is much more built out than we've had it ever in the past. There still is work to do, but students are able to see where they are in their degree program and know the courses that they need to take in order to graduate. So we do believe that leads to higher graduation rates. As I indicated, just a lot more individual help for students, individual texting to students. We've gotten a tremendous amount of response back when we've sent out text to students who have specific things missing or to help them to know what the next step is in the process. It's definitely been a great way of communicating with our students in general. And then we've talked a little bit as well about creating the heritage groups that are supporting the student populations that were identified with the Aspen metrics, and our students are identified as minority students at CAC. Things that we're looking to do as we move forward, we've indicated that our CRM or our degree audit, or those are two separate things, sorry. Focusing on our CRM, which is developing communications to the student population at a larger scale than texting, depending on the specific journey that they're on at the college and what their needs might be in the future. Expanding our mental health services. We've had a tremendous amount of response from our students that are in need of counseling services and requesting services, so we're now looking to expand across the county and find other providers who may be willing to work with the college to provide those mental health services, giving students both and increased options to choose from, but also in order to serve the students more quickly. And then finally, the expansion, as I was indicating earlier, of our degree progress audit for associate's degrees. So it is ready and students are able to use it completely for many of our degree programs and for our certificates, but we're still focused on building that part out. So lots of things that are happening to help to see these numbers increase. Kudos to our student services employees across the district, our faculty and staff who have worked really hard in helping to both retain our students and help them to get to graduation. Mary Kay?
And I will just share a few more, recent and planned improvements from the academic side. And there is a lengthy list, but I've just sort of put these into a couple of buckets. So in terms of recent improvements, one of the big largest focus for academics has been professional development in many ways, professional developments and trainings especially for our faculty, so that, and our faculty do a great job, but to help, really focus on those areas where we need improvements. And so we have done a couple of things. We have, through our Office of Faculty Teaching and Learning, provided some summer workshops and some additional workshops during the year. We're going to continue this year, working on a streamlining, making a more clear and consistent approach to syllabus and course materials, and to make that more user-friendly, and also to follow principles of universal design to help all students. And then we've also really targeted some of our orientations. We created, which we had in the very distant past, but we've created a new full-time faculty orientation, which they attend along with the all-employee orientation, but to help with some of the things that are specifically teaching and learning. And the deans have done follow-up through the year, so it's not just a once and done. And then we did a survey of our adjunct faculty. We do orientations for them, and they're optional for them, but we asked them to provide more feedback about what they would like and what's helpful. And so with with their input, we have really streamlined the generic orientation, the talking heads part, but we've expanded the workshops for things that they can really learn from. And we've had a lot of staff step in and provide 1-hour workshops. And we found that not only our adjuncts, but some of our full-time faculty were attending them. One of our deans attended in the fall, and they were really well received. And they're not the same every semester. We're looking for new materials every time. So that's been kind of a really nice, I think, improvement, and we hope to see some results from that. And then in the planned improvements, we also have and I should say, I'm sorry, I missed in the recent improvements, another big bucket was the kinds of resources that we create and provide for students. So continuing to try to do more OER. And with our Title V grant, we have a lot of opportunity to work with trying to incorporate more what we would call high impact or asset-based learning resources into the teaching to, again, target those populations of students who need more support. So, more positive approaches. Then in the planned improvements, we also do have additional training and resources planned, primarily through Title V grant, but also through a grant called All Rise, which is a STEM grant that's we're part of with a consortium, and we're looking at creating, in fact, we've been awarded some additional funding to pursue putting together more experiential learning in the hard sciences, in the lab classrooms, not just the labs, but in the classrooms in general, because we do know from a lot of our experience that hands-on learning works better probably for all students, but definitely for our students who are underserved. So those are the couple of the things that we're really, really working on. And then as an institution, we've rejoined the Arizona NOS, which is the National Organization for Student Success. It used to be the National Association for Developmental Education, but we've moved away from that concept of focusing on DevEd and moving more towards just student success in general, and how do we remove barriers and help move students forward. So joining the Arizona chapter has been really not expensive and great because it gives us a lot of access to colleagues and lots of things to exchange. And then we did have a group that went to the National NOS, and we've had presentations over the last couple of years at National NOS. So those are good organizations for us to be a part of. So that's all from me, and if you have any questions for either of us, we'd be glad to take them.
Board have any questions, comments? Please, Dr.
A little off topic maybe, but I keep looking at Pell graduation rates up there, and Pell makes me think of financial aid, and financial aid these days makes me think of FAFSA. And I'm wondering how much impact the Department of Ed's inability to create a workable FAFSA is impacting our students.
I'll let Jenny come up for that, yeah.
We'll share with you some information that Dr. Elliott shared with us this morning, and it's impacted colleges and universities across the country tremendously. So, if I recall, it's about 25%, I think, below the number of students that would typically have, and it might even be higher. I'll get the number for you, but that typically would have completed the FAFSA at this time in previous years. So it has had a tremendous effect on completion. This month, the month of April in Arizona, was just declared, gosh, I wish I had it with me. I'm sorry?
Community College Month?
Community College Month, but there's a specific declaration specific to FAFSA that was created for this month in response to exactly what you're speaking to. So colleges have been encouraged to have FAFSA completion events and social media campaigns and things that were just sent out by the governor within the last week or so. So I will share that, but it has had a tremendous effect. So it's even more important now that colleges across the country reach out to our high school students and to other students that are coming into the college to focus on completion. Thankfully, it appears as though the process is a little bit easier than it has been in the past from the student perspective. So hopefully that'll help us to get more students to complete it.
Thank you.
So you're welcome.
Any other questions? Great report. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
I know this is out of order of the agenda. I apologize, but it's a report. I would like to introduce our new Dean of Students, David Leitenhouse, if you could please stand up. And so a name can be with a face. So we're very excited that he is here and started, 2 weeks ago?
On the first, ma'am?
On the 1st of April.
How's your April Fool's surprise? Hopefully it's going to turn out much better than that, but it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Dr. Elliott, very much. And it's great to be your Dean of Student Development and join the good folks here at CAC. I look forward to helping us do extraordinary things for our students and our community.
Welcome. Thank you. Glad to have you. Thank you. Okay. So the next thing is call to the board. And I'll start with Board Member Walker.
Board Member Walker here. I recognize fully that my opinion is not necessarily the opinion of the board. And I want to say to the people who might hear my voice, wherever they are dispersed, that I stand in opposition to and the senseless support for terrorist activities. We've had several instances yesterday where bridges were blocked in favor of supporting the terrorists who are trying to destroy human life. And I am not in favor of these people. And I hope my fellow board members agree with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Ordeon?
Nothing for me.
Okay. Board Member Smith?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Okay, for myself, just want to say thank you to all the staff and all your hard work. It shows up in the audits and also some of the retention and the Pell Grant and all the things you're doing. So thank you all for all your hard work in doing that. Again, and I also want to recognize Dr. Elliott for speaking at the ACA event. That was really good with some of the incoming CEOs that were here. And so that was really important. I think the governor thanked the college, the CSC, and for all the hard work, especially with the related to economic development and the training and all the things, the education that we do. So with that, if there's no further business, I declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you. Thanks for being here.